Hey there, Leijiverse. This is Jacob Campbell coming to you live from facebook.com/Leijiverse. Thanks for joining me here today for another, like I said, live interview. We're really excited today to have on the show with us Logan Rebholz, and we're going to switch over right now. How are you doing, Logan?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Really excited to have you on today, mostly because of your incredible portfolio. Over 100 anime releases worked on legendary titles like Barefoot Gen, Galaxy Express 39, and most recently Submarine Super 99, which you helped Discotek to release. And we are so thankful here in English-speaking regions to finally have another missing piece of the puzzle of the Leijiverse shown to us. And so we're hoping that you can give us a little bit of insight on that series, Galaxy Express, and really just the process that goes into creating these releases. People want to know, people need to know, people who may be interested in doing something exactly like what you do. So let me just transition over here and kill the music slowly, kindly, nicely, and start out just by asking you, how would you describe what you do for a living?
So, I mean, basically my responsibilities as far as what I do is I handle conforming most of the subtitles for all kinds of releases to get them, prepped for Blu-ray, timed out, styled, all the configuration that goes into getting the subtitles ready. That's kind of my, my game. And then occasionally, depending on what the title has, like Submarine Super 99 has 5.1 surround sound audio. So I'm in charge of checking the 5.1 audio, mainly because I'm one of the few people at the company that's got a 5.1 surround setup. So I'll go through and check the audio on that kind of thing. But, basically it's just a matter of, kind of going through and getting everything all up to par for, ready to get put on disc.
Yeah, quality control, subtitling, all these different super important things that go in behind the scenes. And, these are things that a lot of things that you do, you don't want people to notice your work, right? You want it to be seamless and to sort of just happen. And if something sticks out, it's maybe because somebody in your position didn't do their job correctly. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's kind of the key of it is if I'm doing my job right, then nobody knows I've done anything at all. It's kind of like the old Bender line from that episode of Futurama. It's, that's exactly how it goes is, you don't want anybody to notice that you've done anything if you're doing it correctly.
I believe he was referring to God at that point.
Well, I don't know that I'd give myself that kind of credit, but
well, maybe we should. I think we'll know by the end of this interview, Logan. So let's start out really basic and in context to the Leijiverse itself. What got you started in anime, and then from there, how did you get into Leiji Matsumoto?
I mean, it like a lot of people, around my age, it was. Old adapted anime like Voltron and Robotech and all the early stuff, and then stumbling into renting tapes that just looked good at Blockbuster and so forth.
Yeah,
I mean, kind of everybody had that sort of moment where it was like, what's this? Oh wow, I like it.
A time when they were kind of like even hyping up those covers and even making dubs more extreme than even the original source material was, right? I mean, that was a really hype time.
Yeah, well, I mean, we just released Cyber City 808 on Blu-ray, and that's a classic example of when they did the dub, they turned the profanity up to 11, and so that was kind of the thing then. And then I just kind of stumbled into when Toonami launched and kind of became, the real home of mainstream for a long time.
Absolutely.
so many people started playing copycat. You had Sci-Fi Channel grabbing stuff, including the 3-9 movies and things like that. And, it just kind of spiraled from there and just became a fan and stuck with it.
Right. And the 3-9 movies on Sci-Fi Channel, I believe you told me that was the first Leijiverse.
That was the first time I'd seen anything
exposure
from Leiji, that really grabbed my attention and, stuck with it. I eventually went back and realized, oh, hey, Star Blazers, Yamato obviously was,
right.
That was a thing. But, that was, again, in that vein of Voltron and Robotech, where it was, brought over, but it was modified in various ways.
Sure. And I mean, a lot of people don't even to this day know that Star Blazers was an anime.
Right.
I mean, it was such a new concept that, oh, well, it's in English. So it's, or even, were you old enough to conceptualize international media being adapted? It's, yeah. So what got you started actually working in anime from there? And I'm sorry, when did you, how old were you when you saw 3-9?
I mean, I've been probably 13 or 14, I'd say, I guess. Maybe a little older.
Yeah, so your whole adolescence kind of.
Pretty much, yeah. Like I said, the Toonami era and all that, that was what kind of kicked it off. So.
Yeah. So from, being exposed to anime at a young age, how do you go from, let's say, seeing 3-9 and then going to working for anime distribution companies?
So in my case, I kind of stumbled into it mostly thanks to a friend who now also works with us at Discotek. If you're familiar with Animego and especially their Kickstarter releases they've been doing for the last, 7 or 8 years, the first one they did was Bubblegum Crisis. And towards the very end of the project, my buddy Mark, who's our QC manager at Discotek now, they were doing a release of the comic, the American Bubblegum Crisis comic was being included with this set. And the scans that had come in were, they were all right quality. And Mark took a look at one of them, was like, I can make this better. And through, somebody brought it to Robert Woodhead's attention or whatever. And he said, hey, if you want to do this, we need it in, within a few days. But, if you can do this, then we'll get you in the set. So Mark, threw it to me and said, hey, you want to give me a hand with this? And we cranked it out real quick and got it done. And that kind of led us to start volunteering on some of Robert's other Kickstarters. And it just sort of went from there and turned into a paid position. And, just kind of, I've just expanded on it as I've gone.
Mm-hmm. And you were working in, I believe you called it crowd production.
Yeah. So the idea is with what Robert did, his theory is nobody cares more about these releases than fans. And I mean, that's absolutely the case. And so his idea was, so many fans want to work on anime, but there's not all that many opportunities to get your foot in the door on this stuff. So it was, hey, if you've got a talent you can bring to the table, throw your hat in and help us out with this set. And so, it was, again, just kind of a volunteer thing, and it just has expanded for me from there.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so true. And from the beginning of when we started doing interviews, this was a theme around Leijiverse works, and it's people who were fans who got into the actual productions. And it was really prevalent in France with Kana, I believe, or Kaze, having fan commentary on DVDs, which has that happened in America? Has that been done? Just a group of fans on a DVD talking about the show?
I mean, I know we've got a few releases. I know one of the Lupin Part 2 DVDs has a commentary from that includes Dawn from the Anime Nostalgia podcast.
Okay.
So I know we've done stuff like that.
Sort of influencer angle on it. No, I mean, does that make...
And, on one of the I want to say it's the Gunsmith Cats Blu-ray that Animego did. That's got Bennett the Sage doing a commentary track. So, there's definitely been, people brought in that, you wouldn't think, or, oh, it's the voice cast, or it's this, or it's that,
Yeah, I mean, there is a bit of a celebrity there appearance. And I guess what I'm discussing was kind of like 2000, I think, early. So, I mean, at that point, we're talking like YouTube was a baby, if even a thing, at that point. So, and these guys were working at conventions. So I can kind of see sort of a transition there from like people who were working conventions doing something on a DVD to what we're talking about there with influencers, a sort of tangent, just reminiscing. I'm talking about all my old interviews. Let's talk about all your old work a little bit more. So what led you? Okay, so you picked up work at Discotek, and can you talk about your time working with Discotek? I mean, what's that been like?
I've been with the company almost 4 years now. In fact, it'll be 4 years coming up this next week, which is honestly, it's hard to believe it's already been 4 years.
Yeah.
It's basically, I mean, I got in when Justin Savakis, our authoring guru, and he's one of the producers. He kind of oversees all the secret sauce that gets everything working on the discs and all that. And Justin's a fantastic guy. I'm so lucky to be working with somebody like him, who founder of Anime News Network. He's been in the industry for over 20 years. It's a privilege to work with somebody like him. And he just, honestly, he posted on Twitter that he was looking for somebody to help with quality control. And since I'd been doing that with Animego in a smaller capacity, luckily just one of my friends on Twitter was like, hey, saw this. Do you want to, throw your hat in the ring? And I figured, what the heck, might as well give it a shot. And so I messaged him and said, what I'd done for Animego, and luckily Robert Woodhead gave me a positive review and said, hey, he knows his stuff. And so Justin, gave me a shot, and it just I started out just doing the quality control, which, the way I did it was you sit down and you get a disc, and you have to go through every little piece of the disc. You test the menu, you test, you watch the video, you watch it twice if you have to listen to it in English. You watch it more than twice if you have to listen to multiple audio tracks, if there's surround and stereo. Basically, you take the disc back apart and test everything and find anything that doesn't work or errors or whatever you can to make sure it gets fixed before it heads out to the masses.
Yeah. So are you working remotely primarily?
Yeah, Discotek, that's one of the strengths of the company is, we don't have a central office. I mean, the only staff really that belong to the company are the owners. Everybody else, we're all contractors. So we all work from home. It's cuts on the overhead because, again, there's no office, there's no nothing like that. And it's for me, it's always been completely by remote.
Do you ever get together or meet up at cons or?
Obviously before the dark times that we've been going through lately.
The plague, yes.
I met up with Justin and Mark. Funny enough, I'd been friends with Mark on the internet for over a decade, and we never met until Anime Expo 2019. And that was literally, I met Mark, and like 4 hours later was the first time that him and I had met Justin in person, despite working for him for several years. So it's usually cons and stuff like that where if the team has a chance to get together, we'll all meet up if we can. Yeah,
awesome. Well, let's talk a little bit more about what's new and what's fresh, and let's talk about Submarine Super 99. This is obscure series to any Westerner. I mean, most Leijiverse things are obscure to us for various reasons. Pre-Discotek publisher snafus abound. Yeah. So this is such an interesting little gem. I mean, why now? Do you have any idea? I mean, why?
That's one of those things that's I joke it's above my pay grade. The stuff that we affectionately call him Mr. Discotek, the owner of the company, the stuff he licenses sometimes takes all of us, it comes out of left field. But, the way I personally look at it is he hasn't been doing this as long as he has. He didn't weather the anime bubble the way he did without knowing what he's doing. And, so I figure when he grabs something, obscure or not, he's got a plan of some kind in mind.
Yeah. I mean, I could speculate on it all day. And when did this project start? When did it first reach your ears that this was maybe a thing?
I know I'd seen it on, because we have a production calendar that, we're honestly, we have stuff on there that's 3 years out at this point. So I remember seeing it on there, but only by name, and didn't at the time connect it to oh hey, it's a Leiji Matsumoto production. I just saw it and was like, okay, it's something about a submarine, cool, great. And then when it came up in the pipeline, the subtitles had actually already been done on it, and so I was initially just thrown in because of the quality control for the 5.1, like I'd mentioned. And, that was when I realized, I'm like, wow, I'd never heard of this at all. And kind of did some more looking into it and figured out what it was about. And, then obviously I had to watch the show for checking the audio. And it's quite a good show. I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I've gotten through a couple episodes. Some people have gotten their pre-orders early, so that's really cool. And I've been really excited to I've got mine over there. So when did you say you first saw it?
Well, I mean, like I said, we have a production calendar that's
what do you have any idea like what the date was, like when that came to your eyes first?
I want to say, I mean, it was over a year ago, easily.
Yeah.
Wow. Once it came down the pipe, it was either October or November. I know it was last fall. We had a really, really busy schedule those couple of months. I know it fell somewhere in October or November that we ended up getting it, and we're testing the disc and everything. So that gives you kind of an idea of the lead time on when we're working on stuff internally versus when it finally hits the street.
So I'm guessing you dug into the how was the process? Was there anything interesting that you had to do? Any sort of magic you had to pull off?
I mean, it wasn't, this one was pretty smooth sailing. Get it? But no, it was, it was a pretty straightforward process. I mean, like I said, most of my stuff was quality checking the 5.1. So, the nice thing with that is you have to focus on making sure that things are sounding correct and there's no dropouts or anything like that. But you also get to just sit back and watch the show that you're working on and, kind of soak it in. So, that was kind of nice, was to be able to go through and just watch it, as usual, because especially with a subtitle only show, I have to read the subs as I'm going through. So I've got a critical eye on, I need to fix this, I need to fix that. And the disc had already been gone through by Mark, the QC manager. So he had a bunch of notes for me, and once I was done with that, I basically picked it up, grabbed the subtitles and made some fixes, and we got it ready to go.
Going through the series, I mean, you got real intimate with it. So in Submarine Super 99, what did you find most, without being spoilery, what did you find most interesting about the series itself?
It was, I mean, honestly, it was the whole undersea, the race of undersea people, that were kind of the villains of the show. I wasn't expecting that. It's one of those things, especially, coming from so much of the space angle that Matsumoto's works tend to skew towards.
What he's most widely known for, I guess, because around these parts we're very aware of the breadth of topics he really covered. But I think there was a decade of space travel that just defines him irrevocably, right? So, yeah, I mean, that submarine angle, I mean, it's super charming to see him tackle something else, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, well, and it's funny because you think about it and it's like, okay, you're underwater, it's devoid, you can't say it's devoid of life, but it's a vast emptiness in a sense. So it's
inhospitable to man.
Yeah, so it's like it's still within his wheelhouse in a way. It's just it's so turned on its head compared to what most people might be used to with his other works, that it's it really is it's a unique kind of take that still feels like his typical kind of work in a sense, without
Yeah, really the overarching sort of archetypes and story beats that Matsumoto likes to hit, and then he basically just plays in between with the theming and the characters. It's really fun to, and it's formulaic. You say what you want about Matsumoto's work, but I love the formula. He does it very well and imaginatively every time, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that was one of the things I thought that I kind of liked compared to, something like 3-9, where it's, it's semi-serialized in that, there's certain points in the show that obviously you need to see to, forward the plot. But there's so much of it that feels like, classic monster of the week kind of thing, in Sentai term. There's not...
Yeah.
You can throw an episode of it on and just kind of watch it wherever. And this is different in that it's much more serialized the way through. You can't just skip an episode. And granted, it's only 13 episodes, so why would you skip it in the first place? But
yeah. I mean, it's definitely mastered the shonen vibe.
Exactly.
The weekly episodic sort of way of handling things. Just tightening things up there a little bit more. Sorry, everybody. So, you kind of described your process, and it sounds like it's just a matter of watch, rewatch, watch again. But is there any kind of process you go into it with, note keeping, especially when it comes to things like quality control? I mean, you are in a sense the last person to really check things off as okay. So do you have a checklist? Do you develop something with the publisher or the editors, or do you have workflows? I mean, I'm asking a lot, but can you tell me anything about it?
Yeah,
especially for people who are interested in getting into the field.
Right. So, I mean, obviously from my subtitling perspective, since that's where most of my work is, especially for a long running show or anything where there's a lot of key terminology, what I personally will do is if I notice something that seems like it's going to be a term that comes back up, say a piece of technology or, a particular location name or something like that, I'll jot it down on an Excel spreadsheet just so I have like a master list of terminology, and then that way, as I go through, I can keep an eye out for that sort of thing and check on it. And that comes up when QC goes through stuff, because, I don't get through the QC stuff unless I'm on a 5.1 disc for the most part. So,
okay.
Usually Mark, our QC guy, he'll do the same thing. As he's going through, he might notice something and go, hey, was this different in an earlier episode? And, he could go back and check it himself, but having the master subtitle scripts, I can do a find and replace in, a tenth of the time it would take him to do that. So, he'll jot down, we have a quality control sheet that's just, loaded with, here's an error in the subtitles. Here's a typo. Here's, here's a video error, here's an audio error, here's something that's broken in the menu, and anything and everything that could be, an issue with the disc in some way will get put on this sheet. And then once he's gone through it, then the rest of us can go back and address it, whether it's Justin fixing something on the disc, me fixing something in the subtitles, whatever it takes. But like I said, from my perspective, it's a lot of it is jotting down terminology, trying to make sure that things like the episode names are consistent between, one episode to the next, because, say the translator works on, 3 projects at a time, they might be jumping between things and, translate an episode of this and put the name of the next episode at the end. And they might not get back to the show for, a couple of weeks or something. And get back to it. Suddenly it's like, okay, I'm moving on to my next episode. And, what's the name? I'll translate it this way. And it's a little bit different from what it was before. So, it's a lot of it's just making sure that things are consistent. Sometimes we'll update terminology if there's, it's a long running franchise that, things have a certain way, like with Lupin. We have a style guide for certain shows that will, tell you, translate this in this way or phrase it in this way to keep everything kind of consistent, all under one umbrella.
Yeah. So, in speaking of 5.1, I've never had a surround system. I remember when the first surround systems were coming out for home, my uncle got Twister when it came out, and Twister was like a system, like a surround sound seller.
Oh yeah,
that was crazy. I mean, in this in adapting 4 or 5.1, is there anything like immersive, any exceptional immersive segments of Submarine Super 99 that stick out in 5.1?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it generally just, it's one that, as far as I know, the 5.1 mix was made when the show was made. Unlike a lot of anime where they've gone back and redone the 5.1 later.
Okay.
In a lot of cases where they do that, they'll add extra lines or, move stuff around. It gets kind of funky. So the nice thing with this was, we didn't need a second subtitle track that dealt with any extra, background lines or anything like that. It was more, the surround field was focused mostly on the sound effects, so you'd get, as you're seeing an underwater battle, you'd get a torpedo explosion and it would come from, behind and to the right or, forward and to the left. It gave you that kind of spatial feel that you want from an underwater battle, just like a space battle.
That's definitely what I was thinking about, those underwater battles and the sound of the ocean surrounding you, that sort of deep sea pressurized sound that happens. So that's interesting. I didn't know they were making sure that there was 5.1 surround on 2003 animes, or like budgets are tight, super tight, and
right. Well, and it's pretty uncommon. I mean, a lot, it kind of goes to the same thing as why, people who might want to import a Japanese Blu-ray are, hit by sticker shock when they see the pricing. The rental market is alive and well over there. And, in because, people commonly have, they've got smaller apartments and things like that. A lot of times, Japanese viewers don't have room for a 5.1 setup. It's gotten easier now with the smaller speakers that we've got, thanks to, more modern technology, obviously. But, from that era, it was definitely a lot more rare that you'd get something that was produced with 5.1 from the get-go. I've worked on a few titles recently. I worked on Planetes for Anime Limited in the UK. I worked for our release of Scride that comes out next month. Those were all done where they added the 5.1 after the fact. They did a later DVD re-release or a Blu-ray re-release and added 5.1. And, so a lot of times they'll re-record the audio, re-record the dialogue, things like that. So, it's become more of a thing that they're interested in In doing, especially for old re-releases. I think because it gives them another kind of a banner thing to have
Sure.
on, or to say like, oh, hey, along with the show in high def, now you've got it in 5.1. So that was really kind of surprising to me that something from this era just came with it.
Yeah, I mean, there's and especially for it had to be known that it was niche.
Right.
Even when it was made. And it almost sort of brings to light how the Japanese publishers or studios treat Matsumoto works. Like there's a chance to experiment. And I'm thinking of the Captain Harlock CGI movie,
right?
Which, if you're talking about an animation experience, I almost see that movie as it was advertising for Toei's 3D department more than it was intended to even make money, right? I mean,
right. Oh yeah, absolutely. And I was glad I was able to grab that because I can't remember the studio that had brought it over here, but I know they were spinning down production, and I was so happy to grab a copy of that disc before it went out of print. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. It feels like they experiment with some of this stuff, and just kind of throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, and maybe the independent spirit of Matsumoto just enables that. I mean, is there anything interesting? Well, let's talk about Galaxy Express 3.9 now. This is another series and Blu-ray release, movie release, correct?
Yeah, so we've got the series on 3 Blu-rays, 3 Blu-ray sets, I should say.
Right, and then I was also meaning to say Eternal Fantasy is what I meant by the movie. Yeah.
Right, yeah, and then I did work on that for same thing, 5.1 control, stuff like that. So
yeah, I mean, for Eternal Fantasy, did you notice anything? Was there anything special about that production when you were working on it, or any notes that you have from your experience working on it?
I mean, the big thing for me was, I was so impressed by the new dub for it. Just the crew at Sound Cadence. I mean, I'm friends with several of the people there, and they nailed it. I mean, they really drove it home. I know there were people out there that were wishing that, we could have gotten the entire Ocean cast for the first 2 films back. And I mean, yeah, there's always the wishful thinking on that kind of stuff, but it's kind of like, for myself as a Gundam fan, it's like, look, if they ever decided to voice act that Gundam Wing, picture drama, you're never going to get the cast back. I mean, it's been, 22 years. It's not going to happen, and I mean, it's wishful thinking, but for my money, I felt like, Sound Cadence just absolutely nailed it with the casting on the movie.
Yeah, I mean, we'll someday have AI created vocal pattern recognition software, and you only have to get them casted once. But it's true, you're gonna have a hard time. I can't remember if the Tetsuro from Eternal Fantasy was the same, because I haven't seen it the whole way through. Was that the same Tetsuro? I don't.
Eve, I'm drawing a blank on.
It's different, right? So
I believe Kel was her original actress from the original 2 movie dubs. It's ones, I guess, would be the right way to put that.
The what ones? I'm sorry, you broke up.
The Viz, the Viz dubs for
the Viz. Okay.
Yeah, because I'm 90% sure that Viz dubbed that.
Okay. Yeah, so many publisher names. But it's like it wouldn't even make sense because it's the TV show Tetsuro that's in Eternal Fantasy and not the original. Even though they say it's like a direct sequel, right. The character models don't look the same. And there was, even at the time when the 999 movies came out, that was a deliberate shift. So. Right. it kind of makes sense for it to be a different voice. I think it's not the same model that they're using.
Right. Well, and that's one of those things where, it's the whole universe is it's such a tenuous grasp on what is all interconnected and what's just kind of, where we're going to throw in a cameo and reference this. There's so many little threads that you can pull apart if you wanted to, that, it just, that kind of stuff works together.
Mm-hmm. So when you were working on, you did the series first.
Yeah, I worked on the, all 113 plus, I think it's a recap episode. So, 114 episodes of the series, plus the three little compilation movies that they sort of did. And that was at the time and so far still the biggest project in one batch I've worked on. We've got a couple things coming down.
Yeah.
Definitely going to be, longer episode counts, but at the time, yeah, that absolutely was the biggest project I'd worked on. And it took me an entire summer to get through it. And that was obviously juggling it with other work, but it was an undertaking, and it took us a while to get it there, but I felt like, there were, without naming names, there were certain companies that had previously made attempts at releasing the show that didn't really put out the best work. And I'd been critical of some of their other releases in the past. And it was one of those things where I kept telling myself, if I ever have the opportunity to do this better, I'm going to do it right. And so when 3-9 fell in my lap, it was like, all right, you know what? I got the chance. I'm going to do it right. And, so we really went at it and just tried to give it the best thing we could best release we could put out.
We couldn't have asked for a better last check than you, then, it seems. And you're correct. And not even in just America, but the Japanese Galaxy Express 3.9 Blu-rays were terrible, apparently. From what I've heard, not great. I'm not going to name drop who told me that. So, I mean, I'd name drop the publisher. We don't, around here, we talk about the Harmony Golds and the Vizes and the Coral Pictures and the, all these people that just basically slap in the face of one of the most important series of animes, not just anime series, but series of animes to happen, to define the genre itself. I mean, it is refreshing. And there's something about Matsumoto's work that seems to make these teams, like the ones you were part of and are part of, go the extra mile. Something about these series is just so special now, and there's something so disastrous and sad happened to these series that it's almost made it better now. It's almost like if there was a retro series of animes, a retro group of animes that could come back and become really prominent again, I think the Leijiverse could do it, just because the people who touch it now are so passionate. I mean, do you notice any sort of exceptional quality when you're working on a Matsumoto release? Do you feel like people maybe go above and beyond just because he's not gotten a fair shake here?
I mean, I think that's part of it. I mean, like I said, it goes back to that whole aspect from, what I mentioned working for Animego and what Robert Wood had said. Nobody cares more about these kind of things than the fans. So, and that plays back into, we're going to hear it from the fans if we don't do something right, and obviously, there's always going to be, the argument of, A versus B in all kinds of stuff. I mean, I know people that are diehard, listen to the original mono sound mix versus the 5.1 remix. List, look at the raw video, don't ever touch it versus degraining it, and, so there's always going to be those, A versus B battles that, you're never going to please the entire fan base, no matter how hard you try. But I think, the real key is even if you can't please everyone, a lot of people who might go, well, I would prefer this, will still at least step back and look at what you've done and go, I respect the effort you put into that. I mean, it's a good example is the 3-9 films. The first two, they were degrained to hell and back, basically, on the Japanese releases. And what a lot of people don't understand is that's what the Japanese market wants. I mean, the reason these discs, left and right get degrained the way that they do is because the Japanese market wants these clean looks. And, unfortunately, if you're a fan of that, that classic, grainy, textured film look, it's not economical to retransfer it a second time just to get that grain back. But, so you're just kind of stuck with what you get. What we did, and I wasn't on the first two movies, but, Justin and Brady Hartle, one of our main producers, they went through an extensive job of adding film grain back to those movies. And granted, you can't fully restore what's been smudged away. I mean, there's always some kind of damage, but in doing so, they cleaned it up and made the films look a little bit better. And it's like, okay, yeah, there are always the detractors that go, well, it's fake film grain, it's not real. Yeah, sure, I understand that, but if the end product is at least a little bit better to look at, I'm a fan of that. And the 3-9 TV series was the same way. We went back and instead of just using the Japanese upscale, as is, Justin redid the upscale from scratch. And personally, I think, his upscale is a massive improvement over the Japanese one.
Yeah, that's interesting. You say that's what the Japanese market want. That's interesting to hear, because I just watched a video where somebody literally said nobody was asking for this process to happen, the degrading thing, but that may be a very subjective thing. Or is it that in America we are not as enthusiastic about it, or we don't care so much about it?
I mean, well, it's I think it all just goes back to the aspect of, again, this stuff was made for their home market. I mean, we're a secondary concern. I mean, at the end of the day.
Well, I guess I would say, not even talking about the cultural difference or who got it first, because we've also done this to things like Terminator, and we degrain live action movies all the time. But now there is maybe even people are saying, well, the film grain wasn't so bad. Or I'm saying, what do people in America think about degraining? Just specifically, what do we think about it?
I mean, as far as anime fans in America, I'd say the vast majority are against it.
Okay.
The thing about anime fans is they have a little bit more technical acumen as far as understanding, some of the nuances of how film, anime, and whatnot was produced compared to, your average Hollywood, just watches, whatever movie of the week is, So I think it's one of those things where a lot of anime fans understand, look, the process to erase this grain is, it's destructive. There are ways to do it where you can absolutely minimize it, but you're always going to lose something no matter how hard you try. And so I think, from the anime fandom perspective, they're generally more against it because they understand, the destructive nature of it.
That's it. That's interesting. So from separated from an anime fan's perspective, not really sure how Americans feel about film grain overall. Yeah, I mean, just more specifically anime. Okay.
The way I hate to put it, but there's so many people who you might go into somebody's house and they've got motion smoothing turned on their TV, and you go, why do you have that on? Oh, I didn't know how to turn it off.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they just, if they can just watch it, they don't care, so they don't care that, something like Terminator or Predator was turned into wax figures. They just, it doesn't connect with them. And, it definitely makes sense as we've gone on because, with digital filming and, in the anime world, with DigiPaint, there's no film grain because it's a digital end-to-end production now, so there's so much that you lose in people are used to a certain look that they go back to this old stuff and go, well, why does it look so, so gross? Why is all this, noise and stuff on it? Get rid of that.
There's some hairs in the corner of the screen. I mean, that's interesting because you're saying in Japan, they want it cleaner. And in America, people who are fans of the old anime miss the grain here. So that to me seems like an actual cultural difference. And it's also interesting because film grain is far more noticeable on anime than it is on a movie, because in a movie you're working with natural light that's not the same from pixel to pixel generally. Whereas, if you got a flat block of color and Harlock is mostly black, you're going to see every speck of dust on that outfit. So, I mean, in terms of the cultural difference, now focusing on the cultural difference, I mean, what do you think the disconnect there is?
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. I mean, I've not figured out what it is that makes them want to do it. It's just, it's such a thing where it's, they wouldn't keep doing it if the market wasn't demanding it. And, I can't figure out what it is that makes them want to do it. But, it's like I said, unfortunately, we're the ones that get stuck with the results of it because you can't often get an uncleaned, undegrained master to work with.
Yeah, I mean, short of flying somebody out to Japan to do this kind of work, and I guess we can only hope that this old school anime restoration, I mean, do you perceive it as a movement?
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, I think, we actually saw it just recently with the show Charge Man Ken, kind of a show, but they realized that the film reels were deteriorating and they were going to be irrecoverable if they kept going. And they did a crowdfunding campaign to get the film scanned and get it restored. And they're releasing a Blu-ray release of it and sometime in the summer, I think I just saw. And, I think that's going to be the most driving factor is if these studios are aware of the condition of their films, they may not have a choice but to start scanning them. And I can only hope that when they do that, they just do an absolutely raw scan, don't mess with it at all.
Yeah.
That because, hey, you can always go back and degrain it later if that's what your market wants. But, you can't risk losing it,
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, why were the originals? I mean, I guess we're talking about each time you scan it, you can go bigger. Each generation, we can get a better and better image quality. I don't know if we've capped out or kind of. Do you know on our scanner technology, have we kind of peaked in terms of resolution, or are we just bump it? It's
kind of, a lot of it comes down to the film stock itself. A lot of people are 16 millimeter isn't worth anything over, 720p or 1080p, because of how chunky the grain pattern is. 35 millimeter, that's commonly used for getting 4K masters. I think there's always going to be, some kind of improvement in the technology, but I guess it's a matter of, is the storage medium that it's already on that we're scanning, how much more can you really get out of that?
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I mean, as AI begins to integrate more and more into restoration, the inclination is to think more data, more better for AI, our surrogate brain now that we're developing collectively. I mean, I'm not sure if you use any kind of AI or familiar with. I mean, this is just a totally random tangent, but
I mean, I've messed with some of the AI upscaling video technologies. Just playing around. I'm a big Kamen Rider fan. From the live action side of things, and there's a few seasons of that were produced strictly in standard def. So I've messed around with seeing like, hey, I wonder how one of these AI upscales would do on it. And, it's interesting technology. I think the problem a lot of people have is they think it's a set it and forget it kind of thing where you can just, hey, I'm going to throw this episode at it and just let it do its thing. And, and that's unfortunately, it's not really that well trained. You might get some really good results in one scene and then the next scene just looks horrifically terrible.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of work that goes into that. We at Discotek, we've been using this technology called AstroRes. We kind of showed it off for our upcoming release of Project ACO, which we ended up finding the actual master film for in the end, which was kind of a find. But
nice, yeah.
We'd originally been planning to do an upscale of it using AstroRes, and the results themselves are really impressive. But again, it's one of those things where, the fandom at large might think that it's, oh yeah, you just throw AstroRes at it and you get this amazing picture. It's not that simple. There's
a starting point.
A lot of manual work that goes into it to even be able to feed it something to start.
Right.
I mean, you had, the old concept of garbage in, garbage out is absolutely true with any kind of upscaling, AI, manual, whatever. It's, if you don't have a good source, you're not going to get even a passable result.
Yeah. I mean, what is the acronym for that degraining process? Do you know it offhand?
Well, the one that I know refer to, there's FORS, which FORS, that's one that gets used on a lot of anime. I mean, anything else is just, denoising or degraining or, I don't know if there's any specific, It
was like D. It starts with a D. It's like a 3 or 4 letter acronym. But anyways, that's not important.
Yeah, probably DNR.
DNR, exactly. Yeah. DNR. Yes.
Production.
Yeah, these filtered sort of, things that it's funny because you and I might have been messing with computers much younger in our young adulthood and playing with image editing and seeing that, you can get a pretty far way just by doing a couple filters, but eventually you realize, oh, wait, this isn't quality yet. And it's amazing that we were figuring this out in our young adulthoods, and there were full-grown adults just pressing filter on Dragon Ball Z frames and just destroying it and just like, yep, put it out. I mean, how was there ever a mentality that you could ever just push a button and make a quality I don't know how they got to that point.
Well, and I think, with the DBZ releases, that's, especially like the 16:9 cropping that they did on it. That was a case of going mainstream with, if you hear that your market base is complaining about, oh God, I don't like these black bars on the sides of the screen, so, okay, if you want it in Walmart where you're going to pick up, Joe Random, who's going to go, oh man, I remember watching Dragon Ball Z on Toonami. I'm going to buy this. You're not gunning for your anime fans at that point. You're gunning for mass market. And, that works at times. I mean, I can't figure that Funimation has managed to release, Dragon Ball Z as many times as they have without, without managing to sell it. But, it's one of those things where, unfortunately, the smaller but yet more vocal market, we're the ones that suffer because, money talks. I mean, it's the unfortunate reality.
It is really tough, and that goes back to why I wanted to say, is this a movement? I see this restoration and editing of retro anime just gaining more. It's snowballing more and more, and wondering, is this a market of just people who are insane, or is there actually a bit of renaissance, or if not renaissance, I maybe want to say revival or revitalization of something that most of us missed out on, but are painfully aware of how important it is. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? And maybe even your own thoughts on old anime that you come to find out about later in life that inspired everything you loved as a kid.
Well, I mean, I think, for me, that's one of the most amazing things about working for a company like Discotek, where, your Funimations and your Viz and your Sentais, they're so focused on what the new hotness is. They want all the new stuff. And of course, they have a back catalog of some of the older stuff, but, their main focus is, strike when the iron's hot. And, what I love about what we get to do is we're going back and grabbing the stuff that those companies, had when they were hot and maybe didn't like people. We've seen stuff that I've seen fans go, why did Discotek grab that? Why did they grab that? It didn't sell. It was going to flop. And then you go over to Right Stuff and you look at their sales listings, and some of those shows are sitting in the top 10 sales for a week, a month, whatever. It's just, I think like you said, a lot of people are starting to look back and go, wow, my favorite anime, it turns out it borrows so much from this other show. I mean, people talk like these isekai shows are brand new and such a new thing. And it's like, no, I mean, stuff like Escaflowne was doing that 25 years ago, and even before that. So, there's always going to be room for restoring the classics and, grabbing those little underappreciated titles. And I think as people have been going forward and looking for, more and more to fill out their libraries, they just, they want to find, classic stuff,
Yeah.
And it's, it's fun to be able to work on this stuff and give it a new life.
It is a bit of a treasure hunt too, to, going back through old catalogs and finding something that just sticks out as odd and unique. And there's something special about it. I'm the only person that knows about this. I have to be the only person in the world who knows about, anything like this. So, and it's also interesting, you were saying that Submarine Super 99, I noticed that it, at one point on Right Stuff, had a best selling on it with the pre-order. So that's really impressive to me that these types of things are moving. So
I think a lot of that also comes from just the idea of, it was kind of like what I said I went through is, at a certain point, people are going to go, okay, I watched Galaxy Express and I really liked this. What else from the creator or from the studio, whatever, what else is out there, and they'll want to grab it, so even if it's not, if they're watching the best installment of something and they grab something that the fandom as a whole says, it's not anywhere near as good. Doesn't matter. I mean, some people might find, their new favorite anime just by, grabbing stuff in that regard.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a fun to it. It almost brings back that hype time in when you were looking at VHS covers in a comic book shop or somewhere back in, when you first started watching anime.
Right.
It sort of brings back, instead of being in a retail store, you're just on Retro Crush going, what is that? How does, that's absurd.
Right.
I need to see that.
And that's a good point too, is, the rise of the streaming services and the easy accessibility, they always talk about how the physical media market is dying and all that. And, I feel like the anime market is still very strong in that regard, because anime fans have known for a long time how licensing works. So they understand that, we put something out and it's got a finite shelf date. Maybe it's, 5-7 years, whatever, but that shelf date is still finite. And I think anime fans have been so used to that compared to the masses that are, watching stuff on Netflix and going, wait, what do you mean I can't watch this movie after the end of the month? Like, what do you mean it's going away? So, but the rise of streaming services for anime has made things so accessible for people to sample and then go, okay, it didn't really click with me. I'll give it the 3-episode test or whatever. And, especially, when you've got Retro Crush and stuff like that, there are so many options out there to just pick something and give it a shot that I think, it's so beneficial for people to expand their horizons with stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's so it's ironic that that may not be the proper usage of ironic, but it's ironic to me that now exists in anime that is older than some of the people who are watching it right now.
Right.
And that's your brand new freshness, and it's everything old is new again, and everything that's new feels almost dated already. It's like everything in the last 10 years to somebody that grew up watching anime before, say, 2006. I think there's like I can't even imagine what it was like to get into anime in 2010. What was that life even like for that? And it just looks like what's coming out now is, it all has this very same look to it. I don't know. Do you notice that? Do you notice that all the character models look like they're drawn by the same person these days?
Yeah. I mean, there's not a lot of modern stuff that grabs my attention. I mean, I'm still a Toonami fan, so I watch stuff on Saturday nights, and it's like, I kind of go for the curated approach because, the problem is, I mean, there's, oh, hey, we've licensed 50 new shows this year. It's like, who even has the time to watch all this stuff?
Yeah,
and
it's a little overwhelming.
The problem is, like you said, when you sit down and you look at it, it's like, okay, this looks the same as this, looks the same as this, looks the same as this. It's so much different from, like you said, going to a comic book store or Blockbuster and looking at those covers. And even if the covers were sweetened up to make something look like, more than it was, it still was, okay, how do we get somebody's attention? And now it's just, here it is, take your pick. Right.
It's very interesting. I don't want to turn into an old curmudgeon. I am, but I think I was born one, but so for somebody that is looking to do what you do, quality control, editing, subtitles, working on the technical aspects of American or whatever region they're in, re-releases of these projects, what would you say? What advice would you give to them?
I mean, basically, I guess it's, don't be afraid to put yourself out there. I mean, obviously that's, that sounds kind of cliche in itself, but, the people like to joke about how, it's used to be, get out there, get your resume out there, hit the bricks, and, and it doesn't work like that. Well, it kind of still does in this industry. It's, you're not going to find your way into just doing it without getting into it somehow. It's my entire way, like I said, was I volunteered to help out on a project. And when the opportunity popped up, I just went, hey, can I do this? One of our guys I mentioned in Brady, that was the same thing. He basically was just like, hey, can I design the packaging for this show? And they took a chance on him, and now he's one of our lead producers. So it's, if you've got a technical eye for details, if you've got skills with proofreading, any of that stuff can translate over so well into what we do. And then it's just a matter of finding an opportunity. Most of these studios, Funimation, Viz, they all have career sites. Discotek, again, we're a very small operation, so it's a little different there. But so many of these companies have these career sites that are like, hey, we're looking for somebody with this kind of experience. And I've looked at them before, and it's it's not, oh, you have to know how this works. You have to do this. You have to do this. A lot of times it's just, hey, are you, have you done proofreading? Like, it's that simple. So, it's just a matter of, if you have a skill set, market it. You just have to look for the right people to talk to. We hired one of our recent guys at Discotek. He was the same thing. We found him through Twitter. He was posting about video restoration stuff, and next thing you know, Justin's reaching out to him, and he's one of our associate producers now. So it's, don't be afraid to put yourself out there and demonstrate what you have, because you never know who's looking.
Yeah, and there's a lot of eyes out there now, and it's in some ways easier to be seen, some ways harder to be seen. I mean, what you described to me, somebody, a company just willing to give somebody a chance, is very rare in America. It's exceedingly rare. Something upwards of 90% of jobs are gotten through somebody you knew. A friend of a friend. So, and from what I understand, culturally in Japan, it's far more a culture of giving people a chance, like you described. And I'm just curious, is that a carryover from that sort of thought on the matter, that these people, we don't have to vet so hard, because there's a lot of people interested in doing it, and if they're not good, we can just find somebody else. I mean, what do you suspect the thought process is there? Well, at least for Discotek, because are you sure it's that easy for Funimation and Viz? I feel like maybe Discotek is an exception to giving people a chance.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely not going to be, as simple as just, hey, I tagged the social media manager of Funimation on Twitter or something like that. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah. You basically said it right there. If you're not able to keep up with the task, you're going to burn out real quick. I mean, the fan subbing world was like that. Plenty of people, look at Crunchyroll. I mean, so many people that were, into that, if they stuck with it, they stayed on because they had the dedication and the drive to do it. And, again, like I said, if you don't have the skills or the passion or the drive, you're going to burn out of it real quick. And it's real easy to get discouraged by stuff. I mean, there are projects where I've looked at things and gone, man, this, I can't, I can't do this. Like, I don't know if is this going to be the one that kills me off,
Oh, no. Was that how you felt for 3.9? I mean, that was a big task.
Funny enough, no, that one was actually, I mean, it was a long one, but it was, it helped that I think the subtitles I had from the start were in really good shape. They didn't need that much improvement. It was just kind of tidying them up and getting them prepped. But, there's always projects out there that are like, wow, this is going to be the one that kills me. And I think what ends up coming around on it is when you get it done and you move on to the next project, it's like, okay, I can put this behind me. And then a few months down the road, the disc comes out and you see the people that are so happy to finally have something. I mean, I'm already seeing it with Submarine Super 99. It's, so many people are like, wow, I never thought we'd see this. And those kind of reactions are what give you the drive to just keep going, because even if you work on a show that you look at it and you go, I couldn't care one bit about the show. It means nothing to me. But the thing is, you have to, even on the shows you don't care about, you have to be able to, pour yourself into them and do the best job you can, because sure, it doesn't matter to you, but it does matter to somebody else out there. And they're spending their hard-earned money on this stuff. You really don't want to let them down.
Yeah, and that's should be the only attitude that's taken towards this work. But again, I fear saying it, but I think you're working with an exception. I think you're working with exceptions in the industries. I mean, I don't know. I don't I don't see Funimation getting the same kind of positive responses from Dragon Ball fans that, you know, you're getting about Submarine Super 99. And I think maybe that has to do with scale a lot of the time, but and you guys work at a smaller scale, so you make a better product. It just seems to be a curse.
That's definitely part of it is, you know, yeah, we are a smaller team and, you know, yeah, okay, we don't do the volume that some of the big guys do, but, you know, there's a passion that we have, you know, as a smaller team, you know, and again, it's, you know, it's the kind of idea of anime fans are the ones who, you know, who care the most. And, you know, at the end of the day, we are all fans. I mean, you know, it doesn't matter, you know, again, like I said, you might not care about one show, but the next show down the line might be, you know, something you've always wanted to work on. So, you know, it's the passion has to be there. And, you know, so I think that's part of what makes our team special is we just, you know, we care.
Yeah. Well, it's just Scorsese says one for them, one for me or something like that. I mean, I guess, I don't know. Are you lucky enough to work on about 50% shows that you like at least?
Oh, easily. Yeah. I mean, you know, the thing is I've worked on stuff that at the time I would have gone, you know, I wouldn't have given a second thought. And I've ended up working on things and going, wow, I really actually like that show. Like, you know, I'm going to seek out more stuff from it because I ended up liking it enough. You know, Sympho Gear recently. I've had friends that are, oh, Sympho Gear is so amazing. It's amazing. I'm like, you know, it doesn't really seem like my thing. I watched the first season. I was like, okay, now I really want to watch more.
That's awesome. And finding new things is great. Speaking about fans, what I've noticed over and over again is that Matsumoto Leijiverse fans, they find their way into productions. They find their way into influencing things and making a mark and making sure that things are special. Over the course of working on, for you personally, over the course of working on 39 or 99, did you have any sort of fan interactions that helped to inform your work or hear of any other sort of fan interactions that made an impact on any Leijiverse releases you've been attached to?
I mean, nothing I'd say directly for me, mostly because, you know, a lot of this stuff until we announce it, you know, we've got to keep it under wraps. So it's hard to, you know, approach like a fan group and say, hey, you know, what do you guys think of this without showing our cards? You know, it's easier once, you know, if we've announced that we've got something and then we're working on it after the announcement, you know, but I would say, you know, stuff like the fan wikis and just, you know, researching, you know, some of the people that have been in the fandom for a long time, you know, like we consulted with Zach Davison on some of the stuff for the movies and the series. You know, it all kind of shifted back and forth. You know, so you kind of reach out in stealthy ways, you know, because again, like I said, you don't want to show your hand if you haven't announced the license. But, you know, there are always, especially thanks to the internet era, like I said, you know, wikis and things like that can become so useful to just checking something as simple as like, hey, you know, this episode is making a reference. It seems like, am I right? You know, so go check it out here and go, oh, okay, yeah, they are calling to something from Harlock or something from 60 episodes earlier that I've forgotten about because I've been working on 59 more episodes.
Yeah, so that fan documentation that exists, that infrastructure of information that existed before you guys got to put it back out there in a proper form was instrumental in a lot of sort of technical reference, in a technical reference sort of sense.
Right. Well,
correct?
We've had instances where, you know, figuring out certain, you know, certain terminologies, like in one of the 39 episodes in the first set, there's a reference to, like, I think the episode itself is named after a cat. And normally we get
Mikun?
like, what's that?
Mikun?
Yes, that's it. Yes.
Okay, that's Matsumoto's cat.
Right.
It was in Star Blaze. I'm spoiling it, but it's in Star Blazers. Well, that's the first anime so that he was in. So yeah,
Right.
Mikune's in Star Blazers.
Something like that. A lot of times we get rid of honorifics in the subs because sometimes they just, they push lines to be a little bit too long, or they can be clunky at times. So, there are times where we'll kind of futz around with stuff like that. But when it came to Mikun, we were like, okay, well, do we keep the honorific because that's the name? And so, it was little things like that. Like, okay, let's go check out the wiki and see what they say. And what did the manga do? What did this do? What have other official translations do? There are all kinds of little things like that where, the fandom just, putting these resources together, it becomes instrumental in making sure that we're keeping things consistent. And, and I think that's my whole thing as a fan is I like consistency, even if I'm going from, something that we've put out to something that, say, Funimation might have. If there's a consistency in terminology and things like that, it's more pleasant for the fans as a whole to experience. So, then, there are things like we were seeking out those old dubs for those 3.9 compilations. And it was important that we reached out to the fans and said, hey, if anyone knows or has a tape of this, or, might have a better quality one, you guys can help us with making this better. And the fandom is always, if they have something, they're always right there ready to go. Like, hey, yeah, we want to help. Yeah. It's a two-way street.
Yeah, there's a huge historian aspect to being a retro anime fan. I call it otaku historians, first and foremost, because I mean, it comes with the territory of loving old things as you become an authority on the thing that you love that's old and unique. And why does it look that way? Why is everything so bizarre? A kid nowadays might be going, why is it a square and not a rectangle? And real quick before you respond, I forgot to mention, guys, if you're watching right now, I'm super appreciative. Let us know your questions. We're about to get to questions from you guys with Logan here. So if you have questions about quality control, subtitles, editing, Galaxy Express 3.9, the releases, especially about US releases, and I keep doing it, Submarine Super 9.9. Oh my God, it's so bad. Why isn't Super first? It's Superman, not Man Super. No, it's great the way it is. And I'm glad that you didn't end up calling the cat me. That would have been a travesty. So you did a good job there.
That was one of those things it was like, it sounds so weird if you get rid of me coon, it just sound right. So that was definitely one that we were not gonna mess.
Now, quick note. I'm not talking to you anymore. Quick note. Discotek. I knew about that Captain Harlock comic being released in English like a month before. You can trust me. You can trust your boy. Okay, you can trust us. We're good. It's all good. It's just more time to promote, anyways. What are you gonna leak info on releasing an anime that's older than my dad? I mean, get out of here. All right, now I'm talking to you again, Logan. How you doing?
It's like I said, it's so fun. I wish there were times where we could, we get some of this stuff and I wish we could just immediately announce it. And you have to sit on it for a while. And, but
sometimes there's legal reasons and things aren't signed yet. Exactly. They're planned to be signed. Yeah. It makes sense.
Yeah.
So, I ask everybody this question. You've gotten into the Leijiverse. I'm assuming you're big into 3.9 at least.
Yeah.
What other Leijiverse series? I mean, what else sticks out to you? What are your favorite top three things, whether series or movie in the Leijiverse? What would you say off the top of your head?
I mean, probably the absolute top for me would be Arcadia My Use.
Okay.
I mean, that movie's just fantastic. Then, I mean, honestly, after that, probably the 3-9 series, just because of the breadth of content that it has.
Yeah.
And then, geez, I don't know what I'd rank as number 3. I mean, yeah,
Submarine Super 99. Let's just say
yeah,
that.
why not? You know?
Well, okay. The real question is, which Leijiverse character do you think you are?
Honestly, I'd probably think of myself as mostly like the conductor from 3-9,
Sure.
because he's so focused on keeping everything on track and doing it all right, but he's also kind of neurotic, and
yeah.
I can completely sympathize with that. So,
yeah,
like
a bit anal retentive, might we say?
That's fair.
Yeah, that's fine, and you're exactly the type of person. I mean, conducting this it fits. It's great. You've leaned into it. They call it leaning in. So excellent work, and I love the conductor a great deal. Which voice do you prefer for the conductor? The Japanese voice or the English?
I mean, overall, I because I've gotten so used to the Japanese voices from working on so many episodes that way.
Mm-hmm.
In my head, I think of the Japanese voice.
Okay.
That's my usual go-to.
That one's embedded.
Honestly, I think that was one of the things that made me like the Eternal Fantasy dub so much, was everybody sounded the way I would expect them to when when going to listen to it after spending so much time with the Japanese cast.
Was that the same? Was the Eternal Fantasy voice the same English voice from the movies?
Well, no,
for the conductor
had a couple. I think the conductor was recast. I think the only person that was an existing cast member from the old movies was Maytel, and then David Matranga came over for Harlock. We were able to get him in the Harlock cameo. So other than that, though, I'm pretty sure the entire cast was newcomers to the roles.
Mm-hmm. I think in oh, never mind. That part wasn't translated. Okay, scratch that. I just really love the English conductor. I don't know why. I just love that voice. So this is the big kind of final question that I ask everybody. How has working on Leijiverse projects specifically changed your life?
I mean, it was, like I said, being, 3-9 was the first project I worked on, and, being such a big project overall, I'd like to think that it showed the honchos at Discotek, just how much I was able to take on my plate and, really keep me going. Doing the subtitles. That was one of my earliest projects, when I moved on to dealing with subtitles. So, I like to think that was a big test for me, was, all right, we're throwing this giant project at him. Is he going to burn out, or is he going to keep it going? And, I like to think I did a good job, and, and that's why, here almost 4 years later, I'm still chugging along doing this stuff and getting to work on more titles like Submarine Super.
Yeah, I mean, it proved your mettle, or it something along those lines. It proved that you were up to the task. That's kind of half of the question. I should maybe turn this into a two-parter, because that I'm used to people answering in two parts, because there's typically that work-related part, right, where you proved yourself, or it gave you a break, right, or it may. But then there's also, the stories and the context and the plot points that Matsumoto strings together and tells a story that makes you cry. I mean, if you haven't cried at the 3-9 movies ever, you're missing out. You should probably try crying at 3-9 sometime. You'll like it. I mean, how has the Leijiverse impacted you from a more emotional point?
I mean, it's, like anything. I mean, just discovering a new universe to experience stories in. People like to talk about how their favorite universe, whether it's Star Trek or or any TV show. You might get a finite time with these universes, and so anytime I can find something new that connects with me and gives me more tales to enjoy, especially something long running like that. And then with all of the threads that connect to Harlock and stuff like that, it just, there's so much room to explore the universe itself and the characters. It just, for me, I just enjoy, getting something new. I mean, there's just always something, something new around the bend, in any of these universes. And, especially something that's endured for as long as this has, it's just fun to get involved in that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I mean, you're talking to somebody who did that to the nth degree with the Leijiverse. I swear I watched 3-9, the movie, like 2 years ago at most. That was my first time I ever saw anything by Matsumoto, and it just, I can't stop thinking about this. It's so imaginative and crazy. It's so mind blowing. So yeah, that is, it kind of unlocks your imagination a bit, and that's definitely always a positive life sort of changing or affirming thing. So just wanted to go through here real quick. While I'm looking here, did you have anything that you wanted to bring up to our audience, or anything?
With the Submarine Super 9/9 release. I mean, it's out. Technically, it streets a week from Monday. I think it is Monday or Tuesday. It's basically end of the month. It's already been shipping from Right Stuff, so a lot of people that pre-ordered might have already gotten their copies.
Link on the video itself, so click that link. It'll take you right to Right Stuff.
It's packed with a lot more extras than you might think. I mean, if you look at the back, it lists a couple of extras. It turns out we actually had quite a few more extras that we just didn't really have room to fit. I mean, I made a list of them earlier. Let's see. I mean, I know there's over an hour of extras. It's, we've got opening and endings, a greeting and an interview with Matsumoto, interview with the director, the animation director, the art director, the voice cast, the vocalist. I mean, there's interviews galore in that set. And so it's, if you're looking for a lot of behind the scenes content, because I know a lot of people love that kind of stuff, this is a great set to grab, because, like I said, there's over an hour, including that Matsumoto interview is half an hour long itself.
Oh, okay.
So, there's a lot of good background content along with, with the entire series.
Yeah, I've barely gotten a chance to, that's for me why I like dubs. I would have done anything to get this dub, but I know it's too ridiculous of an ask. I mean, are we ever gonna, now I'm saying this, and then there's Gun Frontier. It's got Steve Bloom as Harlock in it. So it's like, miracles can happen, can't they? Can we get DLC for this Blu-ray later? Wouldn't that be great if we could just get DLC for our Blu-ray?
I mean, you can never say never when it comes to this stuff. I mean, there's always a chance when it comes to any of them. I mean, some of them are a little more unrealistic than others. I mean, like the 3-9 TV series, 113 episodes. Don't know that we're going to take on dubbing something like that, but I mean, you never know. I mean, if, there's always the possibility out there.
Yeah, we can hope. Somebody mentioned they need to sell their licensing to Ikami VV. I don't even like that I said that company name, but for 3D modeling, getting extremely popular. Do you have any idea what he's talking about there?
I mean, the only thing I can guess is maybe there's maybe for 3D printing or something like that.
Yeah, let's not even guess. Daniel Katz, if you're still here, maybe you have to elaborate on what you're talking about with 3D modeling. We're talking about Blu-rays today. But that's all good. I'm glad you're here. Mikun Hatsune. Okay, that there's a last name. I wasn't even aware of Hatsune. The question for Logan: any favorite moment while working on 999, like an amusing anecdote, happenstance that was just magical for you?
Well, I don't know if I'd call it magical, but one thing that I realized, and I realized it basically, I won't say too late because we were able to fix it, but I realized it basically when I was at the end of the series was I caught on to the fact that the translator had decided to change certain units of measurement from, it was either from metric to imperial or imperial to metric. And yeah, granted, I mean, the vast majority of viewers aren't really going to notice it, but there were spots where you could hear them saying kilometers, and I think that's what it was yeah, they were saying kilometers in the dialogue, and the subtitles had been converted to miles. Now, to the translator's credit, their conversions were spot on. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, is this just in this episode, or did I seriously miss the whole way through? So I start digging back to early on, and I'm like, yep, I missed it the entire way through. So then I had to start searching for, I did, luckily I have a setup where I can search through all of my scripts for keywords in one go. Yeah. And so I'm sitting there searching for inches, feet, miles, that, and then having to convert them back to the correct units of measurement. And, it's one of those things where it's like, how many people would have noticed? But at the same time, somebody would have noticed and been like, why did you guys do this? It's like, all right, I got to fix it.
It's like a nerd flex.
Yes.
Maybe you work with this person and I have no ill feelings towards them in saying this, but it's like, it's a nerd flex, but it's like bragging like, hey mom, look what I can do. And you're juggling like glassware. And she's like, I'm not impressed. Right. This is not what.
And one of the things, it's one of the things that we kind of run into a lot, especially when we're dealing with shows that we've rescued that had, older subtitles already, is, the anime fandom and their knowledge has changed so much in the past 20 years that where, you might get somebody who would say, oh, let's go get a bowl of udon. And the subtitles would change that to, let's go get a bowl of noodles. Well, okay, yeah, back when the show might have originally been released, that made sense because people might not have known what udon was.
Yeah.
Now, 20 years later, yeah, we can comfortably assume that, that our fan base knows what these things are.
Now that's fair, but I did learn about the metric system in the 2nd grade. So now,
that's one where it was like, okay, maybe not entirely necessary.
Yeah. There's some Western, we're scared of kilometers here. I mean, that's kind of unfortunately true. Question for both: what is your underappreciated Leijiverse work? What do you think is the least respected, Logan?
I mean, honestly, of the shows, because I haven't read that much of the manga. Sitting down and finding the time to read the stuff is difficult for me. But, honestly, Submarine Super 99 is it's one where, like I said before, I didn't even know it was part of, his works when I saw it on our schedule. And, I think people will look at it and go, oh, hey, this looks like his stuff. Maybe I'll check it out. But, I think there's just not a wide breadth of knowledge about it compared to the big stuff like, Yamato and Harlock and 3-9. I run into a lot of people who, in fact, a friend of mine, when I was checking this disc, I happened to have it sitting looping on the menu, and I hit a button and it started loading up, and he looked at it, he goes, hey, that looks just like the Daft Punk music video. I'm like, well, yeah, Matsumoto did the character designs for it. And he ended up checking out the disc when I got it. He's like, hey, can I borrow that for a couple days?
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I'm excited to get deep into it. I mean, again, subs are a crawl for me. I've self-diagnosed myself as mildly dyslexic, so I do struggle sometimes getting through them quickly, and I'm rewinding, and it's like I feel stupid. But as far as what I think is underappreciated, I would have to say Gun Frontier. It is almost, it's somewhat loathed in the space by some people. The content matter is somewhat controversial at times. I think it gets the same sort of vibes as like Django gets, you know. It's like, it's not the same level, but it's still bringing up unsavory topics. But
Right.
I just can't. I think if I was alive and watching SSX in Japan when it came out, I would say that's the most underappreciated thing because it got canceled halfway through, and I would say it's the best. But I think now that there's a larger consensus that SSX might be, it's a lot of people love the original. I'm just making this the Jake talks about Leijiverse show for a second. But a lot of people love the original, and there's a ton of French fans on our page. So, and they just 78 is their jam. But for coming at it from completely blank, I'd say SSX is the best. And somebody pointed out to me that the stories where Totoro is living for a longer amount of time seem to get more of a bum rap, but Totoro is without a doubt my favorite Leijiverse character. Like,
overall, absolutely, totally agree.
Yeah, and the Matsumoto surrogate, you know, that's who that's Matsumoto portrayed in all of his work. So there's something, the mass consciousness doesn't seem to tune into Totoro, but it takes a little bit to get there, I guess. I don't know what it is.
I mean, maybe they're just not used to the lumpy little potato man, but you know,
potatoes are delicious.
Yeah, I mean, give the potato man a chance, and you'll realize just how good he is.
Yeah. Well, you said you are the conductor. Who's your favorite Leijiverse character?
Honestly, probably Totoro. I mean, yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, he's just, you know, he's such a good character. I mean, he's loyal to the bitter end. I mean, just, you know. Yeah, see that? I mean, yeah, that's
yeah, love the little guy. Well, you know, that looks like it might be it for all of our questions here. I'm so grateful to have you on here, Logan. I hope we can talk again, maybe just gush about anime at some point. Love to have you back on. Next time we get, hey, what's coming down the pipe? What's the next Leijiverse thing? Just tell us now.
You know, I wish I could, but you know, the powers that be would have my head.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to go ask them then, and hopefully they'll tell me next time. Discotek, I love you. Get a hold of me. Let's do cool things. And I want to talk to more people like yourself who've gotten to be so close to the work. Any sign off here? I mean, you already praised the Blu-ray. Please get the Blu-ray. Get Eternal Fantasy while you're at it. Get the 3/9 show DVDs. All stellar quality. All because, at least in part, of this man's work. Any parting words for the Leijiverse?
You know, like always, I mean, you know, thank you to all the fans out there, you know, that keep picking up our stuff and enabling me to keep doing what I get to do. You know, I love this work, and I love, you know, being able to bring it to people in whatever small way I can. So, you know, thank you to everybody who you know takes the time, you know, and their hard-earned money to pick this stuff up, and we'll definitely keep trying to, you know, make it worth your while.
Yeah, everybody, please go out, support the work. The link is attached to this video. You can find our post about Super Submarine 99. Go check out Right Stuff. Please use our affiliate links if you feel so inclined. That does support the page. And can I ask you for a Harlock salute to sign us out here? All right. Hopefully I used the right hand. I probably didn't. Anyways, so have a good one, Leijiverse. I've made enough mistakes for one day, and we'll see you somewhere out there in space. Thanks for your time.
Thanks.